So, Andrew, the other piece that you've recorded is a Praetorius. What drew you to that?
More sleuthing, if you like. Praetorius was a very good composer, but he was also a theorist, and he wrote 3 huge volumes full of fantastic information, if you can actually get there, get through it or into it, about the practicalities of performance as well. So one point he's talking about a lute choir, by which he means lots of members of the lute family, big ones, small ones, playing together, sort of sound of all these plucked instruments. And he says, I had the experience, he says, of performing a piece by, and then he talks about Giaches de Wert, who's a composer of a generation or two before, the Flemish composer working in Italy in the mid-16th century, a motet in 7 parts, Egressus Jesus, biblical text. And he said, Praetorius says, and I performed it with 2 boys, an adult singer, 2 citharns, 2 flutes, 3 lutes, 2 theorbos, 2 spinets, 2 harpsichords, 7 viols, and a big bass viol. So I thought, no, I'm never going to be able to hear this in my life. It's amazing, because we're talking about Praetorius' version with all those, 20 instruments or something, of what we would think of as a piece of 16th century polyphony for 7 voices or choirs in 7 parts. So then, of course, the little question of getting those instruments together, which was fun. It was a great social occasion of just rehearsing the piece, hearing what it sounded like, and working out, well, I had to work out in advance how he used those things, and actually what it does, apart from create a wonderfully rich sonority, is clarify the text. So instead of not quite catching a syllable here and a syllable there in a text that you're meant to know that the choir is singing, you actually hear, as it were, a narrator introducing the story. You hear the woman of Canaan, because it's about her and her daughter, her troubled daughter, how she attracts his attention, and what question he puts to her, or rather what question she puts back to him, and makes him work the miracle to save his daughter. You hear that text by the way Praetorius has scored it. That's really the fascination of it, not just as much as the sonority. Anyway, it really is a very interesting little piece of history, because it's almost as if he's not saying I will have fun with this piece, but he's saying I will update it, in that we now realise the text is not clear enough in this old-fashioned music.
Interesting, given so many instruments and so much music, he still made the text come through.
Quite, yes, paradoxically almost, you'd think.
Do we know the event that it
no, he just
corresponds to?
It was presumably when he was in the court position as organist and composer, so the resources were there, but it was in a church. And how it would fit into a service, I don't know. Just imagine, you've just been worshipping, and the liturgy tells you what's next, and you say, excuse me, I've just got to tune up all these instruments and bring them on and get them to warm up. I don't know how it worked in practical terms in that sense, but it did happen in a church.
And there's a lovely, very high tenor line.
Yes, well, that's another story, because the whole piece, as Praetorius tells us elsewhere, is written to look high, but actually should sound at least a fourth lower, basically. So that's one of my special subjects, if you like. Right? But what it means is that the so-called alto part is, and I think, intended for a high tenor. So what we hear is a very clear voice, as it were, above a lot of the instruments, and then the 2 boys are accompanied by the high sonorities, more or less.
And when you were actually recording this, and what was going through your feelings and your thoughts?
I hate to tell you, why did I do this? No, well, it was interesting, because I had tried to, not envisage, inauralize it. I tried to imagine it in sound, and to a certain point, I have to be able to do that as a conductor. That's what conductors should be able to do. But this was quite a tall order, and in a way, the main difficulty was to understand how to get the lutes to play their part properly. I don't mean play correctly. I just mean what role they should have. Because if they just go plonk, plonk, plonk for every written note, you don't hear them at all, because that gets eaten up by all the other instruments. So they have to do some form of embellishment and, yes, spreading chords, all that sort of thing.
Power chords.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you very much.